Warning, the following video is long and boring. That is if you don't know how to watch it. In fact, by not watching it, you're already doing a great job at listening to this video. This is a podcast, not a video that you watch for fun. It is not for everyone for sure, but if you want to learn something about the recent Steam refund policy and how it affects you as a gamer, just let it play on the background and do something else like go on Facebook or watch a funny video about kittens doing silly stuff in weird hats. Muted. We know this is a bit boring and yeah, I too agree. I wouldn't watch it or listen all of it, so I made up a little bookmark thingy where you can find where we ask what questions in the video so you don't have to waste that much time if a part doesn't interest you in some way. Just keep it a secret forever, okay? The bookmarks are down in the description below. Enjoy!
So, with the addition of refunds in the popular digital platform Steam, there have been conversations around concerning some of the details of this policy. Obviously, this is a pro-consumer move on almost every perspective. It gives a sense of safety and freedom to where someone can spend his money, especially on Linux or Mac platforms, where sometimes ports are horrible or even unplayable. However, the 2 hour mark that was placed as a maximum playtime before you can refund a game, as well as the tendency people have to exploit such ideas in various ways, are some things we would like to discuss today in this Let's Talk About. Today with us, Damon Szymanski, mostly known for his games The Moon Silver and The Music Machine, two short story-driven games that are currently on Steam. The reason he happens to be the perfect person to discuss this with us is that the games fall under the category of the games that are below the refund minimum, 2 hours long, thus making selling them tough on the platform. We would like to welcome him on the show.
Hello, it's good to be here.
Thank you for coming.
Yep, no problem.
So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Let's see. Well, I make games, obviously. um, it's only within the last, not even really year or so that I've been able to start making a living off of them. And actually, at this point, I'm doing game design full time, working on my own games and working with some other people on their games in various capacities. Well, like I said, it's just been very recently I've started to be able to make something even approaching a living wage off of that and, be able to quit my minimum wage retail job and all that fun stuff.
So how long have you been studying programming and developing all that stuff?
Let's see. I started programming when I was, I think, 12 years old,
Wow.
maybe a bit earlier.
The only
I
thing I could do when I was 12 years old is make a peanut butter jelly sandwich.
well, I was really really into the game Myst. Like I was just blown away by that and I really wanted to make my own, Myst type game.
That
Um
adventure type that was on well, like fashioned that year.
yeah, and something with that same sort of atmosphere. So I started at school. They had, I don't know if anyone remembers the program Hyper Studio, but it was kind of like a PowerPoint-esque slide thing, and I guess they had used a kind of similar version of that to make Myst. And so I tried to make my own Myst like game on that, and it wasn't very good, obviously. And then my dad was like, "Well, why don't you try learning how to program stuff in DOS?" That's what he said. And so I found one of his old college textbooks for Microsoft QBasic, and I just started teaching myself to program, and so that was that. um,
Oh, you certainly have an interesting 12-year-old life, let me tell you that.
yeah,
Yeah,
I've
certainly.
always been a weird person.
Weird persons usually do the best stuff in life, so yeah.
Yeah, like all I did was when I was 12 years old was play WoW the whole day, and
Yeah.
like, much to see here.
I wouldn't say that anybody remembered Myst. Like it's forgotten. So it's so old, but it has a feel of 2000 that kind of year. So I mean,
Mm,
it goes back years, and it's pretty
mhm.
awesome.
Yeah, and I've always loved that the atmosphere it created of just like this creepy, complete loneliness. But
So,
it's only within the last maybe year that I actually started like before this I kind of got into just making little 2D action games and stuff like that. And it's only been within the last year that I actually started doing what's brought me some success, which is narrative focused horror games, which has been kind of a complete shift.
also,
But
I have to commend you. Thank you for not making like jump scare games, for fuck's sake.
oh,
God, I saw your post like on your vlog. That a bit. It was a bit like what should I call it, a bit mean towards the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise, but I
Oh,
can fully
I
understand.
didn't actually intend that because I mean those aren't my sort of games, but I actually think that the original Five Nights at Freddy's is quite a clever little game that does deserve some, to have a fan base. I just think that
The sequels they're on kind of like tired the same, milking the same cow over and
Yeah,
over.
I would just say the
yeah,
same thing.
and that particular post was more supposed to be about the culture of Let's Plays than Five Nights at Freddy's
Yeah,
itself.
Yeah, I
I
totally get you.
agree. I'll just say so. And also, like, my first thought was like, well, your games do not have jump scares, so they do not make people act silly on the internet. So
Right.
obviously, they're not going to be as let's play a bait as they like. They're not Goat Simulator. Right? I
Mhm.
personally love that kind of thing more because it's far more atmospheric and far more interesting in many ways. Like throwing something at your face and being like, "Boo!" Now you're scared. I don't know. I never liked that kind of thing.
No, neither did I. My interest in horror has always been in the atmosphere and the build up. So obviously, I mean that's kind of the sort of games I make, very focused on atmosphere and build up and not so much on overt scares.
Okay, Lemon, are you the one to
Oh,
kick off?
yes. What's your opinion on refunds and how will it impact the game industry? Is my first question.
Hmm. Well, that's I guess that's the big question for everyone.
Yeah.
When the policy was first announced, first I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." And then I was like, "Wait a second. My games are all under 2 hours. This is going to be a disaster." So I kind of panicked for a little while. I sent a little bit of a panicked email to my Steam rep guy and I'm like, "What the heck are you doing?" And I posted this like freaked out thread on GOG and I'm like, I'm going to lose my job."
You're
And
all gonna get
uh
sued!
yeah. Yeah. So at this point, I'm not completely convinced by it, but I can see that there are could be some advantages to it, and also the culture of indie gaming makes it is already kind of what would you say, a little bit more patronage, honor system focused already. So it definitely could go either way. It could end up being something that people do abuse pretty badly for games that are under 2 hours, or it could be something that actually ends up being a good thing for lesser known indie games, making people, more willing to try them out and stuff.
As a matter of fact, I never actually paid attention to it, even though I saw it, and since never informed me, I began wondering about how it would affect the game developers. Not the
Hmm.
great scale ones like, say, EA games or something like that, but indie developers
Right.
uh, like you, who most likely try and live off hard work, basically, by themselves or with a couple of people.
Yeah, and of course
So
the big problem isn't in since I've started, actually selling games on Steam and having people actually play the games I make, I've encountered a lot of different customers, and some of them are just wonderful people who really honestly, want to support me as a developer and are very have a lot of integrity and that stuff. Met a lot of people like that, but I've also encountered a lot of people who
all
are,
right,
well,
dicks.
just yeah, they're dicks. um,
The best way
You
to
can
and
say.
score when.
okay.
So, if I had to say my opinion on it,
Mhm.
obviously, this is a pro-consumer move in the sense that, like I said
Yeah.
before, it's something that will give people the freedom and the safety in the essence that you can buy a game that you will play for a certain amount of time, and it's not like if you want to keep it. It's more like if it doesn't work for you and it's completely not your thing, then
Mhm.
you can give it back. Also, like my personal question to all the people that are refunding games that they get it, they play it, and then refund it. Is why risk being banned when you can simply pirate it? Like
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
I always
basically a thing.
I always like the very first moment I saw, and I thought, like people can just get a multiplayer title and like download it, played it for 2 hours, refund it. I'm like, why risk getting banned from Steam Refund? Do just do something you could pirate anyway. Like
Yeah.
I do not
Or you
understand.
could buy for maybe $2 on a Steam sale.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like
What? It's beginning, I think, on 12th of June, something like that. Steam
I'm
sales.
not allowed to say.
Uh, okay, okay, okay.
I'm
we're
sorry.
sorry. We did not know. Well, it's
Um,
okay.
but
Um,
I want to clarify something that I don't have a problem with the idea of a refund system at all. I think that's something that Steam has needed, and I'm completely on board with that. The only thing that I have any qualms about is this whole 2 hour time limit, and that's simply because it's not something that can really be abused that much with longer games, but it has the potential to be horribly abused with shorter narrative focused games.
Okay, so that brings me to my question, my first question actually.
Mhm.
Okay. Do you consider the new refund policy unrefined? Do you think that it has the ability to develop and adjust itself to the way that this marketplace stands, or should it be fundamentally changed?
Well, there's an ongoing discussion on like the Steamworks forum of people bringing up all these questions and potential loopholes having to do with the system. Like, for instance, what happens to your reviews when you refund a game? So does that mean you could just purchase a game that you don't like Gone Home, for instance, in recent months especially, has gotten a lot of
Shit.
like a lot of hate directed at it, a lot of politically motivated hate. So you could see people just buying that game, writing a negative review because for more political reasons, and then refunding it. And then there's questions about what happens to trading card income when if someone buys the game and they just leave it open to get all the trading cards, and they sell the trading cards and then refund the game. Do they get to keep that money? And then what does that mean for people who are just trying to farm cards? There's a lot of questions to it, and Valve being Valve, they're very secretive about things. Um,
No, they just
so
talk
I'm not
themselves.
sure what policies they have in place for any of that. I don't know if the system could use refinement because we don't have enough data to know if it is going to be abused, or if what sort of mechanisms they have in place to keep abuse from happening and stuff. From where
Actually,
I'm standing right now, just from the information I have, and I would like to see it get refined. Especially, I would feel a lot more comfortable with it if there was a time limit difference for shorter games. Because everything, when it comes down to it, I still just don't feel comfortable with the idea of anybody being able to completely complete one of my games and then refund it, even if they liked it.
As I see things, this refund thing is gonna heavily impact developers because people can straight out buy them, see if they actually like them or play within the 2 hour limit and return it to the store. Now, this may not seem much, but when a game does a well advertising job and uses a great funding at advertising its product with, I don't know, explosion stuff, they will actually hope that it will bring people to purchase the game, even though the game might actually not be on the cinematic or probably trailers expectations. That
Mm-hmm.
may lead to false advertising, but if done correctly, it can greatly help the developer sell the game and make money out of it. I don't know about you, but that game really sells its game through its trailer, in contrast to other games, say like Tap Heroes.
Mm-hmm.
If I wanted to implement anything to this refunding policy, it would be what David said. On shorter games, make the duration shorter, or I don't know. How can you refund the $0.02 game? I mean,
uh,
Jesus.
actually, I had that question myself about like, hey, like shorter games, you should like have a more limited time spawn, and then I'm like, but then the point is that who defines short? For
Yeah,
example,
yeah, yeah.
in your game, in the now I'm using that as an
Music machine.
example in the music machine, um, I barely went around in the island. Like in the first like 10 minutes, I found the hatch in like 5 minutes. So that well, like I saw like other buildings and stuff, but I just kind of passed through them, and I could waste more time there, and I could possibly like get some spend more time. But like when someone says like, it's a 2 hour game, but then
Mm-hmm.
maybe I wasted like 4 hours because I'm a moron and I cannot find anything. Or maybe like I wasted 7 hours because I am blind, or
You were FK eating in your grandma's food.
I'm talking about playing the game.
Ah, oops.
Okay, so like defining short, like for example, Vanish Over the Carter. This is like a 4 hour game. That game looked gorgeous, and I went around like looking every tree, every rock, everything around the world, and it took me about 7 to 8 hours to complete it.
Mm-hmm.
But so like this 4 hours, like if the developer says it's a 4 hour game, and it takes me 7 hours, for example, like I'm I'm only mentioning indie games and so on and so forth. But like, what defines short and what defines length? Like, should it be a set of people from Steam that gonna play it? We know that's not gonna happen.
No,
Like
that's not gonna happen.
we do something like the ESRB? Like instead of ratings, we get something like how long a game is, but still, that's something that only Steam needs, and it's
Well, I guess the most obvious solution would be an average of the community playtime
Yeah.
and maybe a certain percentage of that average, but then the question becomes what happens for people who
L tab
bought the
or AFK.
like well that's true.
Like
If you're gonna AFK for several hours in a game though, like and bring it over the refund period, that's kind of your own fault.
yeah,
Yeah.
surely. I,
Okay.
but we're still not talking about refunds. We're talking about clearly like the length right now. Like
Oh,
if
I
some
see what you're saying. Okay, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, like someone who's AFK for 3 hours while
Yeah,
they're
that's what I
eating
said.
or go somewhere, that's gonna throw off the whole average length of the game.
Yes.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
If I say go to Walmart and there's a huge fucking line and I waited like for 40 minutes and I've left the game open, does it still count?
Yeah, and like if like for example for me, where I mostly trust is how long to beat. Like this is a site where you
Hmm.
go and can see like generally how long does it take a game to beat it. Um, but how long to beat still is really subjective. Like you see 40 hours on a speed run, or maybe 20 hours on a leisure run, and so on and so forth. But none of these are concrete. I thought of that
Yeah,
because, you know, the
yeah.
first thing that came to mind is okay, short games, shorter period. But who really defines that short?
Yeah, how do you define that? That's a good question, and I'm not sure what the answer is.
Yeah, like me neither. Like unless we know that's not gonna happen, but unless Steam does something for it, like Valve, and I'm not talking about
Hmm.
Steam, it's Valve. It's like I don't think there's any other real solution to answering that question, so it's just speculation at this point.
Hmm. And of course, the big question is whether that will even need to happen.
Yeah. So,
And that's not something anyone's going to know until after a few months. I know there have been several devs who have come out and said they're getting huge percentages of refunds on their games
uh,
suddenly, but then
so
um, I
like
did see I did see something else about that though, where another developer discovered that most of the copies of their game that were being refunded for a sale price, which means that those were copies of the games that someone had bought on a sale like previous to this refund policy and never played. So
oh
that could be part of it, is that now that the refund policy has just come into existence, everyone is like, oh, I can get
yeah,
rid of these games that I bought
that,
on a
right.
sale or whatever. And
Mhm.
so that could be part of it. I know my own stats are kind of hard to draw any conclusions for because currently I have a bundle going on, but I haven't seen a huge number of refunds, but also most of the copies of my game that are being redeemed in the last few days have been from that bundle. And it seems that a fair percentage of the copies that are actually being sold are refunded. But as I'm looking at it, I'm seeing one of these copies that was refunded for an amount of money that, yeah, it was refunded for $1.49 for the Moonsliver, and that game hasn't been $1.49 for at least a few months now. So that's obviously a copy someone bought on a sale, probably as an impulse, and was probably going back now and cleaning out their Steam library.
Lemon, do you have any other questions?
Yeah, I have one last. How does refunds help the developer